Welcome to Inside the Set with Set Decor. Inside the Set is a series that focuses on the design and decor of stories that excite us and ignite our imaginations, where we get to discuss the collaborations between production designers and set decorators, and hear firsthand accounts of how those works of art came to be, from their inception to ideas on a page through completion, where we sit in the dark and experience them collectively.
Welcome to Inside the Set with Set Decor. I'm Halina Siwolop SDSA. Joining me today are set decorator Daniela Rojas and production designer Eugenio Caballero to discuss their creative collaboration on this beautiful film, Bardo, False Chronicle of a Handful of Truths. Welcome to the both of you, and we're so pleased to have you with us today. There is so much going on in this visually stunning and immersive film, and I'm so excited to be able to talk to you to learn more about your creative process. But let's start with just a basic question on how you came to work on the project and what attracted you to it.
Alejandro called us. This was pandemic. The film had been in different states. The film was stopped. And then basically we were called to come to the project, and we've been working with Daniela and with the crew that came to Bardo in the last projects in the last 2 years, 2 or 3 years. So for me, it was a great chance to basically work with Alejandro, which we are friends from many years ago. We did publicity when he was doing commercials before he started his career as a filmmaker. We worked together, and then we worked together also in some other projects. We're always sharing ideas. So for me, it came very natural that part, and it was interesting to do this with this amazing crew that I had in this film.
So it was like fantastic. It was a great gift from the pandemic, I would say.
Yeah, Alejandro, he says the other day he was talking in a panel saying that at the end the films have their own, basically their own star. Yeah, and I've noticed that through my career too. Films that seems like they were meant to be super successful, then it's a failure, or films that are very difficult, or that nobody believed in them, then turn into projects that connect with audience, which for me is the most important thing of our work, and move feelings. But I think this film had that. The film stopped 3 times. It was a big accent on malleability. We needed to basically learn how to surf this very unexpected wave,
And I'm sure it helped a lot having a friendship behind it and some familiarity. And I understand that in the initial stages of collaboration, that there was a lot of talk about the tone of the film. What were those conversations like?
What was fantastic is that the conversation that Alejandro started to have, it was not just with me, which sometimes happened because the crew entered later. It was with Daniela. She was an integral part of this creative process since the beginning. Remember that, Danny, those conversations, those long phone calls in which Alejandro was saying that this was a comedy. This is basically, it's a, let's say, not a usual comedy, but it's told from the light side, like he used to say that it's like a swim in like when you're snorkeling basically on the surface of the water, and you're calmly racing, and you can see what it's there. You can see the depth, you can see the dark part of the ocean, you can see the gray tones or the mid tones, but you're always on the light. And we all, because I don't know why we tend to that side, but we have done films from the darker side, like always, sometimes, from that dense part in which it's hard to see. But in here, it was very important to be on the light side, so that was one of the initial parts in terms of tone.
For me, it was the first time to have all these conversations and all these like fantastic like talks with Eugenio and with Allejandro, but without knowing the script. No, so it was like through like trying to catch everything a bit, but through all through these like fantastic talks.
That must have been amazing to be in those early conversations and to really get a heartbeat of the project, right? And you guys working together, production design and set decoration. There's so many various themes and moments in this movie. Was there a central thread that kind of helped weave it all together?
I mean, for me, it was that we had to somehow create this world because of the specific state of mind of the character, and because we're seeing all this reality or lack of reality or modified reality through his eyes. Somehow that allowed us to really explore with that thought, with the fact that it's not an absolute real world, but it's also a world that have a lot of realities, but it's told through the memories, right? And I really like that part too.
One part that I remember lots, and that it was like what was fantastic, it was at the very beginning when Eugenio started talking to me about the project, was when he said like, I can't tell you much, but just imagine if it's the apartment of me or the apartment of you or the apartment of some like of your family or or an artist or something. Just try to think that you're doing the apartment of one of us.
It's because, it's very personal to Alejandro, this thing, and Alejandro grew up in a generation in which basically, all the objects or many objects that actually were listed later that we wanted to add, which actually had to do with Alejandro's specific memories, because, this is a fictional character, but Alejandro knows him very well. No, I'm not going to say that it's a biographic, but because it's a fictional character, but at the end, he knows it very well. He knows how he dresses, he knows how he looks, what are the objects that he have. So for me, it was a very important, even though it is through his memories, to give a sense of place. This is a film that actually shot in different countries, as you're saying. Well, in the States and in Mexico, just because this is the duality that the character has. There's a big comment about migration, about not being from any place in a certain way. But we wanted to have the perfume of a generation of Mexican, I'm not going to say intellectuals, but Mexican people that was some sort of a same group in that sense. But the other thing that we spoke a lot, and Daniela and her team did it very well, is that it was not the principal house from them. The principal residence from the last 13 years was in LA. So everything that is basically a day-to-day objects, they belong to LA, not belong to here. These are more, this is somehow the foundations, the explanation of what the character is, right? These albums, which were important in that sense, but in general, there were a lot of newspapers, which now you read in your computer, but 13 years ago it was different. Or you had these paper magazine, political magazines that were, now again, you read all these things with new technology, but this was frozen in time. I remember there was plants that were dry, not taken care of.
It was, as you say, it was like the roots, no? So you wouldn't remove everything, or so that was like, we did a lot of like Mexicanity there, or I don't know how to say it. And then the love for all the artesanías, no?
The handcraft,
all the handcraft
all
and
the
all
hand-
the like super very well chosen. And I love to all the Mexican artists, artisans, writers, painters. It was like the love of Mexico in that department, that it was what you wouldn't let go, no?
He's a sophisticated character and very elegant himself, even his face and the rest of the characters, especially Lucia, the wife, she also have that sophistication. So that was part of that. That's why I think Daniela started proposing since the very beginning this sort of mid-century style furniture that actually allowed us to have that in combination with antiques and with with art, and as Daniela was saying, it's, let's say, high level of Mexican handcraft. I think the combination of all of that allowed us also to play with color, because all the upholstery for these for these couches and this thing allowed us to do something that we actually started talking since the beginning, right? Daniela, we saw this film. Do you remember which film we saw?
Red Shoes.
The Red Shoes.
The Red Shoes,
we saw it many times, just because the palette was super elegant, and but it was saturated and colorful in a certain way, but not the usual expected colors. This kind of burned oranges and dark greens and and blues and pinks, like rosewood pinks and deep purples.
A lot of the furniture and a lot of the rugs and lamps and things were made because Alejandro, I remember once he said, like, it takes 25 years for my wife and I to choose a rug. So for me to choose a rug is, so it was like, we don't have time because we're making it, and we
don't have 25 years to choose.
We don't have 25 years. And then, we made a lot of the furniture. A lot was finding like with antique sellers, and the couch, we made it with the specific green and like the specific size. We made a lot of things in San Miguel de Allende, which is like 3 hours from Mexico City.
Oh, this is a drawing, actually. It's fun because one of the things that I enjoyed a lot is to work in the concept art phase with Daniela. I really enjoyed this room. We changed it 3 times. Remember, Dani?
Yeah, like, 3 or 4 times, like completely change it. Like,
what was it that you had to change? I'm just curious about that.
Everything.
Well, again, it was the tone. The first approach that we did was really melancholic. So Daniela came with this idea of bringing this huge lamp, and Darius got excited. You can see in his eyes, which is just beautiful eyes that Darius Conji has when he connects with an idea. And Alejandro said, why not we do movement? And I said, why don't we put some sparkling things there, this and there. And then Daniela, we started with this idea, and it was the way we did it.
Curtains, we changed the curtains so many times. And at the beginning, it was like the brief was that it was a closet and like a storage place, remember? So it was like, we started putting everything that we were not using. Actually, it was almost like our storage place, but then it started to be more like as Eugenio said, like, no, let's do it more whimsical. No, let's do it like more for the kids. No, let's do it more like, and it kept changing.
One thing that I really was impressed with Daniela's crew is that she completely followed my crazy idea of making everything movable in the set. You can see that we have these wild walls in hinges or with a guillotine system or on rails like a closet. And Well, that implies, in order to be efficient, super efficient, not just a construction thing, but also a planning in terms of set decoration and which are the objects, how these objects will come, how you hang the objects. Because if you create a system like that slides like the one you're seeing in here, which basically it was a system in rails, this one, and then you have our painting hang with something that doesn't let this wall goes, then all the work is destroyed. So they put a lot of time and a lot of creativity in solving these practical problems, which at the end made this possible. And I think that was an integral part of the design, because allowed us to have this sort of choreography, very complex choreography with camera, that you can see in all the sets. At the end, this film is because of the lenses and the scope that it has, but the lenses specifically and the movement of the camera, it's almost like a VR experience, right?
A challenge it was that because of pandemic, only like 1 or 2 people from each department could be on the stage. So then with all these like movements and walls and klein walls, and we thought more not to have a lot of people to be doing it, but to be on time and efficient. And that was also like interesting.
With a system that will open like
and yeah,
like that. We were playing. We had a lot of fun in that part too,
Well, it's truly a beautiful set. And I have to admit, as with a trained eye, I had to figure out, was this a set or a location? And I had thought, there's no way it can be a location doing all these amazing shots. But I know that there was a big collaboration, with lighting and even the sound, and trying to bring it in and make it such a real space. And you guys were really successful on that. That was amazing. And on that note, you were talking about color. I know there was a lot of talk about color with costumes. Did that affect your color choices of what you used on all the sets? And I'm assuming you all worked very closely with the costume designer.
We work a lot with
Anna.
It's super inspiring. He's as obsessive as Daniela in terms of, the texture, the color, the specific color. What is the message? Daniela, and you tell me, but you had always conversations with Anna on which were the colors that she would use in the costume, so you can basically play with that in the sets, aren't you?
Yeah, we were all, and I mean, Anna and I were very good friends. We're very close friends, so that also helped a lot. And yes, with Anna, we were always showing us like the fabrics and this and that, and her like fantastic mood boards, and so that was a very collaborative work.
We had a methodology I think it was very useful for this film, because the film, it touches a lot of, let's say, symbolic subjects in a certain way, I understand that Alejandro had an idea, and then the idea, he had to narrow it a little bit to put it on the script, and then there's this moment in which all these ideas, which still are on paper, but still can be completely open, you have to narrow them into a set, in a concrete thing. So we were the first ones which actually, put down on earth, ground those ideas. We created this method of showing Alejandro what our proposal, which was through Zoom at the beginning, in a very precise way, like drawings, concept art, a color palette. Then Daniela made these amazing mood boards, then concrete furniture pieces that we could get, all of these things, and then narrow that into a space. And you can see actually that some of the concept art are identical to the sets.
Did you build multiple versions of the apartment to accommodate the flooded apartment and the one that was out in the desert?
Yes. What was very interesting is again, as a mirror of what is happening with Silverio, is that he's always misplaced. He's never in his natural place. You know, he doesn't fully belong in Mexico. He doesn't fully belong in the States. So he's always misplaced. So we had a lot of these elements as let's say as a symbolic or as a metaphor of that. We have the water, the apartment that is flooded. We have the apartment that is full of sand. We have the apartment in the desert. We have a train that is flooded as well. So we did many versions of that. We took and I don't even know how Daniela made that, but we took basically a good chunk of the apartment to the desert, 3,000 miles from the studio.
One day it was shooted, floated, and the next day we needed to pack it. So, and because we didn't have doubles of anything whatsoever, so we had to send the living room and the foyer and everything. We had to send it like wet and dry it on the desert. And before was the sand, like it was sand. Then we had to wrap completely the sand overnight, completely, like it was trucks and trucks of and like sacks of sand, and then it was the floating.
That was the last thing we did in the studio before we took the apartment down to the desert. We wanted to have it in the desert. It was not a connection with visual effects because there was an emotional part with the actor, which was important. It was a very, let's say, it's one of those scenes that was completely the fundamental for Alejandro to shoot it in the desert itself. Also because of the light, it was very hard to mimic the light in the studio. So we decided to we took the apartment. We took not all of it, but a good chunk of it, like the three main halls, this entrance hall plus the corridor. Plus...
And we even had to take sand with us, like a lot of sacks of sand, because the sand from the real desert didn't match the sand that we used before. So we used the sand of the desert as a base, but then we had to throw our sand. So yes, it was
a little nightmare. Then
we had a hell of a team. Like everybody was tired, but super, super happy and super always like, just let's do it.
Well, no, I mean that is the nice version of what happened in terms of the desert, because I remember that we dressed up the set was ready, and that last day when we were about to shoot, it started raining.
Sí.
So it started raining in that desert, in which basically was impossible. It turned into a muddy thing. And so we needed to basically change the schedule. We had to wrap up all of the set decoration, remember? Just put it in a truck, then let the rain come, then let the soil dry. And afterwards, after 6 days, we had to dress it up again to shoot it in the proper conditions. It was kind of a nightmare.
All those unexpected complications, right? Just makes it even harder. Well, it seems seamless, and it looked amazing, and I couldn't tell the difference with the sand. But so speaking of which, I know you shot a lot on locations. Were there certain factors that you used in choosing your locations? Was it, other than the desert, was it mostly shot in Mexico City or outside? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
We shot in locations. We built a lot of things too, a lot of things, a lot of sets. in the studio. We had 3 studios in Mexico City, 4 studios, let's say, in Mexico City. And basically we were building sets, shooting it, wrapping them up. In the studio, we built the hospital. We did the all the TV programs, all the TV shows, which was a huge sets. We did the apartment, obviously. We did the apartment in LA. We did the California Dancing Club bathroom connected to a corridor. We did 2 sets that were not in the film at the end. One was Silverio's childhood room, which was a beautiful set that Daniela did, 1970s period, beautiful set. We choose locations for different reasons. We wanted to showcase also the architecture of Mexico. Somehow it's part of Silverio's influences. It's in his head. You know, we had architecture like Mexico City. It's full of story. We shot in the main plaza, which actually come from pre-Hispanic times, and the buildings that surround the plaza, they come as far as early as the 16th century. Then we shot in Mexico City streets downtown, which are basically developed on the 17th, 18th century. We, at the end of the 18th century, also was built the Chapultepec Castle, which is a landmark, an historical landmark in Mexico. And then we shot in these streets, middle class streets from Mexico, where the house is, which is more neighborhoods developed at the end of the 19th century. We chose the streets because of how rich they were in terms of architecture. The practical part, the part of this cross street, it's a pedestrian street, so that was less problematic to control. Mm-hmm. Then the second one was that it did have this church, which we wanted to make a comment about, you know, the factic power of the church itself, no? But for doing that, Daniela and her team and the construction crew as well, you know, we did we went facade by facade, basically street by street, understanding what we want to keep from the real life and what do we want to take out, change, or basically build. That's why the palette is so controlled, because we change all the awnings. Daniela, you change almost every sign. You dressed up a lot of you know, convenience stores. They turn into more lavish and elegant shops. We build this window display so we can put the camera behind, and also the food stall. But this is a good example, for example, of what we did. You can see that there's a graffiti there behind of a rifle, right? Which basically it's a comment about violence in a certain way. So it's very subtle. Obviously, when you will go to that street, it's full of noise in terms of visual noise. You have many businesses, you have many colors, you have a lot of things that are, but this is super controlled. So what we did is we painted the curtains, we closed it, we painted in 2 tones, then we did this, you know, graffiti. And so what we did is we tried to sophisticate the reality into the point in which we could feel comfortable. And if you can see, there's cars mixed of you know, objects like set decoration, custom design, and cars. They have a specific color palette, but not just that. It mixed 5 decades of memories. So you had things from the 70s, from the 80s, from the 90s, and from the 2000s, because we go inside of what could be the influences of Silverio in his mind, in which he's mashing up and mixing everything, and then turning to a reality that is created by his own memory.
Well, I love what you did with the street scenes, because you just augmented the texture and the beauty of the city and the architecture. And it was subtle on some points and more obvious in others, but it was just really a visual feast. So that was really well done.
Daniela, how many times you did these streets? Because we reshoot like also 3 times, I believe, right?
Yeah, it was like night shoots, and we had to make them, and because they were functional shops, so we needed to either empty or we put like plugs. So, and then we had to even make rehearsals of how fast and how could we do it.
How much time did you have to dress those streets?
It was like 5 or 6 hours.
Oh, well done.
Because it was when they closed, like they told us like around 6 or 8 p.m. and then
I think it was from they close at 8. Sometimes
Exactly.
they go out at 9 p.m. and the shooting was at 5 p.m. or something, 5 a.m. So it was crazy, really, to tell you the truth. It was an army of people,
an
with
army.
a specific task, with no time to doubt anything. Just go there, boom.
Yeah,
Some of the awning we did it the night before, probably things that were not affecting the business itself, but the main work was done through one night. And then
and then in the morning it needed to be wrapped like
after the shooting, yes.
After the shooting, because they only had like because it was supposed to be in between like the sunrise, so they didn't have also a lot of time to shoot it. So it was like everything had to be like, they arrived to shoot, I think it was at 4 a.m. in the morning. So it was really like a very, very short period of shooting. And then we had to get everything back to normal. And whenever they told us we have to do it again, locations and all of us, we were like, what?
Yeah, but I remember the second time it was, it was easy, yeah, it was all rehearsed. And the third time, no, it was like, okay, we know how to do it.
Yeah.
But it was tough because we had more than 50 sets, actually 51 to tell you, to be precise, 51 sets, 96 days of shooting.
Wow.
All of them were epic and huge and full of layers.
The airport
was huge. It was a big effort because obviously we couldn't shoot in an airport. So we went into abandoned shopping mall, in which we had a base that may work, but we built a lot, and set decoration did an immense amount of things, like all the booths, all the machines for the passports, all the global entry things,
the lights,
all the lights, yes. Then the sliding doors. We did the carousel for the luggage. It was a massive effort,
That's amazing. I was going to ask about the biggest challenges, and it sounds like the challenge
everything
was, yeah.
All of that you see, all of that we put it. Even the columns, the silver columns. Yes, we had a floor and we had a roof. That's what we had. And then we put these lines of gray that actually remind us what you have here. We did this division that you can see with the sliding doors. All of that was basically our,
Wow, that's just amazing. So what were some of your favorite sets, or what gave you the most pleasure?
Man, that's a tough one. Daniela, I let you answer first.
That's a tough one too. I mean, the apartment, I guess, it was like every single little thing was, yeah. I can tell because we enjoyed a lot of, and I said, like, I had a fantastic team, and we all, like all the art directors also, and like my team, Alejandra, and all the girls with us. It was great. Like,
did you have a team that was larger than usual, or was this kind of?
No. at the beginning we didn't knew what we were getting into.
Ignorance is bliss, right?
Yeah. But yeah, so in some sets we ended having like, for the airport, we ended having a little more crew, because it was like we were doing every set was huge. Every single set was huge. So we were like doing the Televisa, and we were doing downtown. So we needed also like a different, more fresh team for the airport.
96 days is a long shoot. You end up burned out by the fact of the work. For me, I think what I enjoyed the most was the television show, the television sets, the one that it's a period set with this woman that dances, and then I really enjoyed this one. I obviously, for me, the heart of the film is the apartment, but also the train. The train was fun to do.
The train also, yeah.
The train was fun to do, because we were experimenting with these new technologies. Like it's strange, when you get inside and you forget for a minute that you're really in a studio. Because you saw all the screens, the light, the way it comes. It was like, man, we're moving. It was a very nice thing, and this set was complex because it did had a solid structure that will hold the weight of the water. That actually will hold the water and the weight of the water, and it was made over springs, so we could basically create a movement of the train itself. So there was a lot of technical complexity in this set, and that was very exciting.
And did you have a team in Los Angeles, or Daniela, did you come out here to do the Santa Monica?
Mercedes, we had a girl that helped us, super nice, and she had like a little team, but we prepared like almost everything. We shipped a lot of things too. So it was just the entrance, like when they enter the apartment. So we did like the way like Eugenio likes to work, that we do the concept drawing with almost all the elements before. So we send that to Mercedes, and then I went with her to a lot of prop houses and to
well, I was hoping you were able to use some of our wonderful SDSA vendors.
Yes, you did. And yes, I think you did, but we end up shooting, to tell you the truth, we end up shooting not a lot in LA, because part of it was built in Mexico City, like the room, the real room, which was the room in LA, we call it. It was the name of the set, and in which she's floating, and actually it was a bigger scene there, but it's that was shot in a studio in Mexico City. We shot basically the exteriors here and the entrance to the house, and some running shots, and the plates that we shot for the Santa Monica train that we use later in the LED screens in the stage, right? Like.
And Mercedes and her team were fantastic. No, Eugenio, they were like.
Yeah. It was fantastic. It was a good experience. The shoot in LA, brief but very good, very solid. No, I mean this place, and I'm saying this place because I'm in LA right now. This place is I mean it's a city that breeds cinema, and that breeds in terms of sourcing. It is amazing. No, it is amazing. I remember, because we now we're shooting more and more in Mexico. It's something that has been growing in the last years, but when we started, and up to very few years ago, there was not really a prop house, or not even a place where you can rent furniture. Everything was you needed to do a big effort to get to search the things, and then you come in here and you basically go to all these beautiful prop houses you have, or you go to Aztec and wallpapers, and then you can get everything done, and on time and shape. It's amazing, like maybe it sounds so obvious for you guys, but but it was the first time you start to discover that it's a game changing. Well, and now sometimes we rent from them to shoots in Mexico as well, so we source the things from here because somehow the field is more, let's say, organized.
They've really changed their business model to send things out and to help people, and because we're all now going on locations for shooting outside of Los Angeles, and I think once you come back to LA, you really appreciate it just having it right there at your fingertips.
Yeah,
but they also want to send that to wherever it's needed, which is lovely.
And I have to mention, because nobody noticed that, and it's a shame, but because we shot in some historical places, like with a lot of the restrictions, for example, the Chapultepec Castle. So we couldn't really stage the whole scene there. So we did, reproductions of certain corners in the stage, or we did, for example, the main tower in which, this guy jumps. That tower was built in a parking lot. So the one that you're seeing is not the real tower. We created a full-scale replica of that tower in order to do the actions that we needed, and then we integrated it digitally. But it was, it was fun.
What about the pyramid of bodies? Was that on?
It was a stage too.
That was staged.
Yeah. We divide the scene in two parts. Yeah, that is a stage, as you can see. Well, actually, it's not a proper stage. It's actually a warehouse. So what we did is a mapping of the Zócalo, and the first part of the scene was done in the Zócalo. But then all this was shot in this stage. And we had a lot of fun making this plateau. Daniela was telling you that we were working in a big project when pandemic started. That project was a pre-Hispanic project. So we did an extensive research on the pre-Hispanic elements. So in terms of costume design and props, which were basically led by Daniela in this case, we did all the chimales, all the weapons, all of that was very, high quality reproductions of what we can find in museums and in our extensive research. And then we reproduced a part we matched the floor of the main square, as you can see there. We talked about tone. We did this huge structure that reminds us like a charcoal stone. It was made with, with that quality. You have some matte areas and some shiny areas. As when you see a rock of charcoal, you have that texture. That was our inspiration for that. And then what I love about this scene also is that it's super solemn in a certain moment, and then in the same scene, you take out the solemnity by basically revealing the fourth wall, and I really love that part.
Well, it was very well done. Very well done. And in complete contrast to one of my favorite scenes, which was the California Dancing Club.
That was super fun.
That was actually one of the toughest sets, I would say.
Yeah.
And this was a build?
No, it's an existing one, but it's not the way you see it.
It's completely run. That was
the rundown one. We had to actually create a structure to hold the roofs.
The roof.
It was falling, the water was falling in, and it's a temple of dance from the 60s and the 50s, 60s, and 70s. So, but all of what you're seeing in the screen are placed by us. All these, panels of light, the chandeliers, all of the mirrors. I think Daniela put, I don't know if 400 or 600 mirrors there, like that. And the light, all these light boxes, acrylic light.
We had like hundreds of light boxes.
Hundreds.
And those panels.
Yes.
Those light panels.
All of that was placed by us in that sense, plus the furniture, the golden foil, chandeliers. That is the concept art that we put together. So all of these elements that are in the middle of of a dancing floor. You know, we had like champagne structure and some ice sculpture, very cheesy in a certain way, you know, like, and all this popote floor, which is the garlands that you can see in a lot of places. That is actually to hide the situation of the roof. You can see
you can see a bit.
No, you can see a bit in that picture, you know. And then Daniela dressed this bar and some other bars like that. We put all this marble mirror in the whole place. It was immense amount of work. And then we shot this part, the rooftop, in another place. Doesn't belong to it's another location. So we chose this because of the building that we had. So it was basically a parking lot or an empty rooftop in which we built. You know, we painted obviously all these murals. Daniela dressed up this bar, plus the other bar. We built the structure that give the idea that there's a staircase that goes up to this. So it was an empty place completely.
And then that's where Pedro Reyes did the mural. No?
That is made by Pedro Reyes, one of the biggest Mexican artists. He designed this for us, and we did it. Basically, we painted it. It was a massive urban art piece, and we created the billboard too, the California Dancing Club billboards. It was cool. And this is a stage.
That was great. This was a stage.
This is a stage. This bathroom it's built on a stage. When you were there, you wanted to use the bathroom, you know, like which would be a disaster. But but it was so real, you know.
Well, I love the aging. I love the aging of the club itself and what you did here. And they just married really well together. And it just looks like a well-used club that's been around for decades.
And because the real California Dancing Club I think it has like 4 different bedrooms, which they are all like fantastic, but it was impossible to shoot there. So I remember we took a lot of photos of all the bedrooms. No, remember?
Well, yeah, and the thing is that you needed a very controlled environment, because in here, as you remember, there's this scene in which Silverio is small. So we had, you know, this visual effect that was complex, which is basically placing the face of Daniel Jimenez Cacho, the main actor, into a kid's body. So you needed a lot of precision for that. And so again, we needed to take out walls to allow us have everything we need in terms of lighting and in terms of practicality as well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And this set was connected. Sorry, this set was connected to a corridor, and in the middle of that corridor there was a door in which you basically open it, and you had this period room of Silverio when he was 9-year-old or 11 years old or something like that. So Daniela created this beautiful set that is not there. I hope it comes in the outtakes. You know, because it was actually post-produced. It was in the version that was in Venezia, the longer version that was reduced later. But it was a beautiful set. You know, I really had a crew in the top of their game. You know, my supervising art directors, Carlos Jacques and Bonelli, the art directors, the set decoration crew. It was really great. We had great painters, not just scenic painter in general, but we had a great scenic painters in the set decoration team. Beautiful carpenters that built a lot of furniture. A great props department, you know, as well. It was
the background props, yeah.
They work a lot with Daniela. I have to say that Daniela took the lead on that as well. You know, like so that's why it feels you know, so tight. I believe
that we had a great team. I had the best team.
And I have to say, just as a viewer, I didn't know what I was walking into. And I was delighted, and it reinvigorated my love of working in this business and really kind of give me hope for like really amazing creative work. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, I must say the same, that this movie that happened to me and working with like Eugenio, Darius, and Alejandro was like, it was being like in the middle of three like toros, like bulls. They were always like, and all these, like, I couldn't say who was more crazy of the other, but it was just fantastic. And it really gave, like a love to for what we do.
Yeah, no, it was really great. And I can't wait to see what you guys do next.
Yes, we're on it.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Inside the Set with Set Decor. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and visit our website, setdecor.com.